You know, it's interesting because, of course, I'm a CPA, and I've done plenty of tax returns, and I can tell you the difficulty that it is of getting tax returns done. Most Americans don't understand all the line items on the tax return, and I think most IRS agents don't understand in many cases those same line items on the tax return. I believe I call it the consumption tax, which is the fair tax, is a good model. I think it's a fair model. The biggest problem with the consumption tax is implementing it. And as I continue to study it, because I am a firm believer, we need to make a fair tax in this system. Because right now, taxes are used to either penalize people to do things or enhance people to do things. That's not what the taxing system was for. The taxing system was really to collect enough revenue to take care of our military spending and keep us free. And ultimately, we need to be and to run the central government programs. So I'm a firm believer in the fair tax, the consumption tax, but I do need to, you know, you can look at the, if you go to the flat tax, it's an easy implementation. But I do believe in the fair tax, and I'd like to see a way to have that implemented in a simple fashion.
Thank you. Doyle?
Most of my tax subjects are in the conclusions chapter of my book, Budget Your Goals, Not Your Silver. In that, I find 6 specific changes that need to be made in the income tax to make it a fair tax. The first one is deduct investment at the time it's paid and tax it at the time it's sold or disappears with assets. That way, we do not have to have capital gains. The second one has to do with the fact that we have marriage problems that really should not be part of the federal tax system. There are 4 others in the book. They are written, they're pretty explicit. Among other things, taxes or dividends are like parents' allowances. The parent earns it, the child spends it. It's not income in both places. The dividends should be either deducted for the corporation or not be included as income for the individual.
Thank you. Paul?
Yes, very quickly, John F. Kennedy was the first president in modern history to address the tax issue and actually had the first major decreases since World War II in taxes overall. And a lot of people are stunned to find that out. It wasn't Ronald Reagan. He followed John F. Kennedy's platform. I believe that what we need to do is what John F. Kennedy and then Ronald Reagan in the 80s did, was to drastically lower the capital gains tax, drastically lower corporate taxes. I believe corporations should not be paying any taxes. I firmly believe that. And decrease severely the capital gains taxes. John F. Kennedy used to say, a rising tide lifts all boats. And that's what we need to start doing. We need to start lifting all the boats out there, all the people that are losing their homes. We're being taxed to death. The bottom line is, I do believe in a fair tax, in a sales tax. But we've got to work it so that the poor aren't affected. I believe in rebates for those people, etc. But until we get to that point of a fair tax, I believe that we still need to drastically reduce the tax rate as it is now.
Thank you. Matt?
My answer will sound very similar, especially here to Mr. Renacci's. The fact of the matter is I've attended all the courses and read part of the book and talked with a number of you about the fair tax. And yes, I absolutely agree that a sales tax is the fairest form of taxation since it's based on the individual spending. The challenge, though, is just as Jim Renacci explains it, and that is implementing it. Because let's face it, right now, county governments are funded largely by the sales tax. State government is in many instances funded by the sales tax. And so by the time you combined all those sales tax rates, the sales tax rate would be so high, it would shock the individual when they showed up at Walmart and made their purchase. I do believe it's the fairest form of taxation, but we've got to take a look at how we would implement it, because it appears to me you have to have all the stars aligned to make it happen. Paul, I think your answer is very reasonable, because the fact is, until we get to the fair tax, we've got to make changes to the incredible tax code that we already have on the books. And some of you might be familiar with Representative Ryan's bill. He just introduced a piece of legislation, and he is actually calling for the elimination of the death tax, the elimination of the corporate income tax, and replace it with an 8.5% consumption tax, and doing away with the alternative minimum tax. And quite honestly, if you take a look at what he's introduced, I'm not sure it wouldn't be a bad idea until we get to the day that we can move forward with the fair tax.